this is the Daily Signal for June 23rd, 2025. We're covering the most critical developments from the last 24 hours that are reshaping our world right now. Here are today's top 10 stories. Story 1. Two massive oil supertankers executed emergency U-turns in the Strait of Hormuz after U.S. nuclear strikes on Iran. Story 2. Trump launches first direct U.S. military action against Iran, hitting 3 nuclear sites while floating regime change. Story 3. Suicide bomber kills 22 worshippers inside Damascus church as Syrian violence escalates. Story 4. Israeli forces recover bodies of 3 hostages from Gaza in overnight operation. Story 5. London's police chief expresses shock over planned Palestine action protest amid regional tensions. Story 6. Israel launches coordinated airstrikes across Iran as officials call this the war's turning point. Story 7. NATO members agree to massive defense spending increases, but Spain breaks ranks and opts out. Story 8. UK questions whether America will listen to allies as Trump pushes aggressive Iran strategy. Story 9. Nuclear watchdog reports extensive damage to Iranian facilities, raising contamination fears. Story 10. Officials admit they don't know the fate of Iran's uranium stockpile after the strikes. Now let's dive into each story. 2 oil supertankers just made emergency U-turns in the world's most important oil choke point. The Coswisdom Lake and South Loyalty were heading through the Strait of Hormuz when they suddenly reversed course yesterday. This happened just hours after U.S. airstrikes hit Iranian nuclear facilities. These aren't small vessels. We're talking about massive supertankers that carry millions of barrels of oil. When they change course this dramatically, it signals serious danger ahead. Here's why this matters to you. The Strait of Hormuz handles about 20% of the world's oil traffic. Iran controls the northern side. If they shut it down as threatened, gas prices could spike globally within days. These ship captains saw something that made them turn around immediately. Breaking overnight, President Trump authorized the first direct U.S. military strikes on Iranian soil, hitting 3 major nuclear facilities: Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. Trump declared the mission successful and made this stunning statement: Iran could be a great country again, essentially calling for regime change. This marks the most aggressive U.S. action against Iran in decades. Iran's response was swift. They launched dozens of missiles into Israel on June 21st and are now threatening to completely shut down the Strait of Hormuz. The world's #1 state sponsor of terror, as Trump called them, is not backing down. This changes everything. We've crossed from proxy conflict to direct superpower confrontation in the Middle East. 22 worshippers were killed when a suicide bomber struck a church in Damascus yesterday. This attack highlights how regional violence is spreading beyond the Iran-Israel conflict. Syria remains a powder keg, and this bombing shows how terrorist groups exploit larger conflicts to carry out devastating attacks on civilians. The victims were simply attending service when their lives were cut short. This connects to our broader story. As major powers clash, extremist groups find opportunities to strike vulnerable targets. Israeli forces recovered the bodies of 3 hostages from Gaza in an overnight operation. The IDF hasn't released their identities, but this grim discovery adds to the mounting human toll of this conflict. These were people whose families have been waiting, hoping, praying for their return. Instead, they got the worst possible news. This recovery operation shows Israel's commitment to bringing everyone home, even those who can no longer return alive. The psychological impact on both Israeli society and the families involved cannot be overstated. London's Metropolitan Police Chief expressed shock at planned Palestine action protests scheduled for this week. With tensions exploding in the Middle East, UK authorities are preparing for potentially massive demonstrations. Here's the critical detail. Police are worried these protests could turn violent given the current international crisis. They're implementing special security measures for what they expect could be the largest pro-Palestinian demonstrations in London's history. This shows how Middle Eastern conflicts immediately impact European cities with large diaspora populations. U.S. officials are calling yesterday's coordinated strikes a turning point in the Israel-Iran conflict. After America hit Iranian nuclear sites, Israel launched its own massive airstrike campaign across multiple Iranian targets. This represents the most significant military escalation since World War II. We now have two nuclear powers, the US and Israel, directly attacking a third nation seeking nuclear weapons. Iranian defenses have been overwhelmed. Their air force is essentially grounded, but cornered enemies often become most dangerous. Iran's next move could determine whether this becomes a regional war or World War III. NATO members agreed to dramatically increase defense spending targets, but Spain broke ranks and opted out completely. This reveals cracks in the Western alliance at the worst possible time. While most NATO countries recognize the need for higher military spending given current threats, Spain's rejection signals that European unity isn't guaranteed. Some allies worry about economic impacts of massive defense increases. This division could weaken deterrence when strength and unity are most needed. Britain is publicly questioning whether America will listen to allied concerns about Iran's strategy. UK officials want diplomatic engagement. Trump wants regime change. This is diplomatically explosive. Close allies rarely contradict each other in public during active conflicts. The fact that Britain is openly questioning U.S. strategy tells you how concerned they are about Trump's approach. The special relationship between America and Britain is under unprecedented strain. The International Atomic Energy Agency reports extensive damage to Iranian nuclear facilities from yesterday's strikes. But here's the terrifying part. They're worried about nuclear contamination and environmental impact. When you bomb nuclear facilities, you don't just stop weapons programs, you potentially create radioactive hazards. The IAEA is rushing inspectors to assess whether dangerous materials were released. This could create environmental consequences lasting decades. Perhaps most alarming, officials admit they don't know what happened to Iran's uranium stockpile after the strikes. Did it get destroyed, secured, stolen? Iran had enough enriched uranium to potentially build several nuclear weapons. If that material is unaccounted for, it could end up anywhere, including in terrorist hands. This uncertainty might be more dangerous than the original nuclear program. Today's stories reveal three connected patterns that will shape our world. First, economic warfare. Those tanker U-turns and Iran's threats to close Hormuz could trigger global energy crisis. Oil markets are already responding with price spikes. Second, alliance fractures. Spain rejecting NATO spending increases and Britain questioning U.S. strategy show Western unity cracking under pressure. Our enemies are watching these divisions carefully. Third, nuclear proliferation fears. With Iranian uranium unaccounted for and nuclear facilities damaged, the nightmare scenario of nuclear materials reaching terrorists has become more likely. Watch oil prices this week. They'll tell you how seriously markets view Iran's Hormuz threats. Monitor European protests, especially in London, Paris, and Berlin. And pay attention to China's response. They've been notably silent about their ally Iran being attacked. This is Remo with the Daily Signal. These 10 stories are connected threads in a rapidly unraveling situation that affects everyone. Stay informed, stay prepared, and we'll be back tomorrow with the latest developments.